Richard, you have a Canadian connection through your mother. Could you tell us about it?
Yes, my mother was born in 1912 in Montreal, outside of Montreal, in Longueuil, if you know that section of town. And she actually graduated from McGill, and both in violin and voice. And her professional career was as a soprano, and she sang most of North America, and based in that time, I mean in the 30s, after she graduated, she went to the Mecca, which was New York City. But she did have also a radio program on the CBC, a weekly radio program. And her parents remained living in Montreal until they passed. And then later on, I actually met my first wife in Toronto also, and I lived in Toronto for 5 years. And my daughter was born in Toronto, and she's a dual citizen now. So I've probably conducted almost every orchestra and opera company in Canada. Been up for music directorship for a number of them. Never got it, but that was a different story. But love Canada, and still enjoy going up there and working as often as asked. I'll be going up to Ottawa, actually doing CAF-PAG in performances are in September this fall, coming fall.
The National Arts Centre?
That's right.
Oh, very good.
I'm trying to remember the guy. He finally did pass away. A wonderful conductor, wonderful human being, musician, who had the Guelph Music Festival.
Nicky Goldsmith.
Nicky Goldsmith.
Yeah. He was an amazing
guy, and it was also just he was he was very kind to me, very supportive.
Oh, good.
Of my work too.
Yeah.
Very supportive.
Oh, what a dynamo, even into his 90s.
Yeah.
Richard, I'd like to ask you first about how you got into conducting. And I suppose the obvious answer is, well, my father was a conductor.
Right.
What else would I do? But often that works the other way, that because your father does such and such, you have to do anything else. It doesn't matter what it is, anything else, because you don't want to be compared with your father. How did it work for you?
Well, it's interesting. Because, in fact, my father being a conductor made me run the other way for quite a while. I was initially, at a very young age, because of both my parents being in the arts, I was exposed to a lot of music, both opera and symphonic, and did the typical, started playing piano at 6, and then started playing guitar
at 7,
and I don't play very well, you see, it was clear. And sang in children's choruses. I grew up in New York City, sang at the Metropolitan Opera Children's Chorus Opera, and also New York City Opera. And in the summers we would be in Central City, so I was immersed in that type of experience. Then my parents moved to Florida when I was 10, and it was culture shock. And so one day I came home with, of all instruments, a trombone, and I said, I'm going to learn to play this. And indeed I did. And when I was 14, 2 days after my 14th birthday, September 3rd, my birthday is the 1st, when I was 14, I conned my parents into sending me to the North Carolina School of the Arts, where I was still hoping in the back of my mind that my voice would change and I would be a singer. Well, but I didn't want to stay home, and I didn't want to be in Florida anymore, and I wanted to at least be exposed to a musical conservatory type of experience. Well, to make this long story shorter, the voice never occurred. The trombone put me through college and a master's degree and played professionally, and also then I got into a situation where I did a lot of arts administration. I was managers for touring orchestras and this type of thing. And by around the age of 18, 4 years having been away from my father by that time, I started to go, well, trombone's going to not satisfy me artistically, musically, although I loved it and it was a great experience, and I was interested in management. Why don't I also start investigating some conducting? So I was with an orchestra that was on tour in Italy, and we were the guinea pig orchestra for a famous conducting teacher named Franco Ferrara at the l'Accademia di Gianna, and I watched him and participated in some of the conducting seminars that were going on, and then just started to make my own way, putting groups together and starting to conduct. And it wasn't really not until after my master's degree, auditioning for Aspen School of Music conducting program. I was still just 20 at that time, and I was accepted, went there, and then I got a grant to go to Seattle, and I worked for the opera company there as assistant conductor and music administrator, preparing the very first ring that was ever done in North America. This would have been the year 74-5 season, with a ring being done in the summer of 75. And I was in a situation where I could observe people preparing, and I got picked up by the symphony to go be administrator of some sort, but then also they were going through a conductor search for a music director. And I made a deal with the not the devil, he was actually a fantastic man. Lanham Deal was the executive director of the Seattle Symphony at that time. And he said, well, you know, you're 21, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm either going to be an arts administrator or I'm going to be a conductor. So he hired me to be an arts administrator for him. I was an orchestra operations manager, but allowed me to go to absolutely every service that the professional orchestra played. This would be all the pop services, all the rehearsals and performances. It was great. I spent 17 hours a day, 7 days a week, observing the experience. So what does this mean? I'm pretty self-taught. Did one other summer thing at the Mozarteum in Salzburg, and then competed successfully in 2 international competitions. And Seattle was a city that both the opera, the symphony, and the ballet just embraced me for 9 years and gave me my opportunity to learn with that orchestra and perform. And the rest has just been luck.
Well, your father was primarily an opera conductor, and your career, the way it's evolved, has been primarily in opera. Was that just the way things worked out, or was that a conscious choice?
In actual fact, the first 12 years of what now is 37 years of conducting was 90% symphonic in career-wise. The mix was 90% symphony, 10% opera.
Well, 30 years ago, you probably couldn't have made a career conducting opera in the United States. There weren't enough opera companies.
That's true. The growth of opera companies in North America has been huge in that period of time. I've also been lucky that I've been able to have a career that also spanned Europe and Théâtre Cologne and some in Asia, and so I've been supported by Canada also, and done a lot of work with almost all the orchestras and opera companies in Canada. So it's been a good career so far. So I hope for it to continue.
Well, we all certainly hope so too, especially in Austin, where you're doing fantastic work.